Hi, this is Jen from thedragoncharmer.com, and I had a question about sewing Nori's feet. So I'm going to show you how to do that. On my wool, I've drawn the foot pattern, and on the single notch is where you sew your line. After that, you want to pin it well so that the wool doesn't shift on you, and cut it out. You're going to cut out about 1/8 of an inch away from the lines that you've drawn. You just want to get close. You don't want to get too close. Take your pins out. And now your foot kind of looks like this. Then you're going to put that aside for a second, and you have 2 legs. One has the marking where you're going to put the joint, and you're going to pin just the top edge of this one. So we're going to pin that here. You want to push the fibers in so that they don't get caught in the seam. Another thing you can do is to cut the fur about 1/4 inch away from the edge, and that helps too. That way you're not sewing through all that fur. And we're just going to pin it all the way down. Pushing that fur out of the way. To the point on the foot. So I'm just going to trim some of this away to make it a little bit easier. To see the point. Now you're going to sew from the point of the toe all the way up the leg and around to where the turning flap is. We're just going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you back stitch at the turning opening. So now we've got this seam stitched. Now what you want to do is open out the seam at the toe point. Again, easier to see if you trim a little bit of the fur away. Don't go too far. Only about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch is needed to cut off. Also makes the seam less bulky. Okay. Now, here's the tricky part. You've got your foot here. You can just finger press the seam a little bit. The double notch, you're going to match up with this double notch. So, when you pin the foot, you're going to pin the right side of your foot to the inside of your foot to the leg. Can you see that? So we know it's the outside because one half will have the marking on it. You want to press those center seams flat and pin. You want to pin really well. The wool is nice because it just kind of shifts with you. It's not real stiff. So you can get it to ease in a little easier than other fabrics. Just keep following it up. When you get to the corner in the leg, just open it out a little bit so that it's not a straight, like square 90-degree angle. You can open your fur out a little. And we're going to pin the other side. Take some of that fur off in the seam. The good thing about using wool with faux fur is that they both have a little bit of stretch in them. Well, that can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing, but usually it's a good thing. You can get your markings to match up a little better because they both have a little ease built in. Okay, so here's what it looks like all pinned. And now we are going to sew it. So I like to put the fur on the bottom. Again, we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam. When you get to the notch, just sew straight across that. The tip of the round part of the inside of the foot is a little tricky. Just move slowly, and you should be okay. If you have to pick your foot up, make sure your needle's down. Rearrange some of the fabric. When you get to the center seam, make sure that it's flat. here's what it looks like once it's been sewn. Now, you're going to fold his foot and leg back up, pin them together. You don't want to worry about the opening of the foot yet. I'm just going to pin this part. Now you'll notice that there's a sharp curve, not curve, but a sharp corner here. So when we sew that, we're actually going to round this off and come into the fur. So go ahead and pin all the way up to the other edge of the turning flap. Okay. So here's where we're going to sew that curve off, that corner off. I've lined up my needle with the edge of the furry leg. I'm just going to sew right up there. And back stitch at the turning flap. And we're almost done. So now we've got his leg, top of his leg and foot, and the bottom of his leg and foot sewn. You can cut off this sharp corner. And now you're going to match the center seams of the foot and pin that. Now you can tell what the inside of the leg is because the inside is where your joint is going to be. This is the side that's going to have your big toe. So what I like to do is start on the little toe side. You're going to start about 3/4 of an inch to an inch down, back stitch, and as you move toward your big toe, you're going to move your seam allowance closer to the edge of the fabric, and then round that off just a bit and back stitch. So now instead of having a square toe, you have a little bit of a roundiness. Trim that till it's about 1/8 of an inch. Cut all those loose strings off. And then at this point, I also want to make sure that both sides of my fabric, I don't have anything that's too close to an edge so it won't fray. Right here, it looks like I might not have caught the fur too much. I might have to go back in and catch that a little bit more. You can also hand sew it after you turn it if you did miss any places like that. Trimming the fur off the edge before you sew makes it easier. But there you go. There's your Nori foot.